Hello, Henry.
Good morning.
You are the HR director for France at Arias. So, who knows Arias? You were telling me when we were preparing this interview, not many people, according to you.
Yes, 2 people in the room, maybe 4. She's here, they're fervent supporters, well done.
So, there are at least 3.
Former Arias employee.
Oh, really? Absolutely. So, for those who don't know Arias yet, in fact, you probably already know Arias because there's a good chance you do. If you go to an airport, a highway rest area, or a train station, to a Starbucks, a McDonald's, a Cogent, or a Paul, behind the scenes, it's probably Arias that's there.
In a train station, it's a 50-50 chance.
In a train station, it's a 50-50 chance. Yes? All right. I was at Arias very often. So it's a company that's not just in France. You're in 11 countries, 2,000 points of sale, 600 in France, which is almost a third. And in terms of employees, that's 20,000 people worldwide.
22,000.
22,000, excuse me. And 160 million customers.
Yes.
That's huge.
Large volume. And to serve these customers, you need people, 22,000 people. I think we need to be able to recruit with a certain level of quality and within certain time frames, and that was our starting point.
That's right. That was exactly the goal you were really pursuing when you initially started getting interested in a conversational AI agent, a platform like SoWhat AI. Was it connected to this recruitment issue?
Fundamentally, and in a, let's say, crisis context. I took up my position in 2021. We were coming out of the crisis. COVID, 300,000 employees left the hospitality and restaurant sector. We were all, and some of us in this room are still experiencing the same difficulties. Solidarity kept us going, and so we faced a challenge that can be summed up in 2 areas: lack of attractiveness and a fundamental problem with retention. So, various HR levers have been activated: salary increases, compensating for the demands of the job. That's the first area. Integration, training, career development, the second area, and also a revamp of the management approach for many of our managers. But that's not enough. Once we've recruited people, we still need to make sure they actually come to us. And as you said, as you mentioned, Arias, no one knows us, inevitably. So it's difficult to build an employer brand when you don't have a brand identity to begin with. And that has also been one of our challenges, recruiting and making ourselves known, especially when we work with brands that are far more powerful than ours. McDonald's, just to give you some perspective, hires 90,000 people a year. It's the biggest recruiter in France.
90,000 hires per year.
90,000, and they have an extraordinary power, the power to act. What none of us can do, they can run ads, have advertising budgets. TV, radio, at 8:30 p.m. to recruit people. So it's impossible to compete with them. McDonald's, and yet we still need to be able to recruit. So how are we going to do it?
Right, you're prompting me with the question. Let me think. What was your approach to taking action, to launching this?
Well, in a rather grand way, it was about redesigning the recruiter and candidate experience. Being a recruiter, it was painful in many ways. It was hard to post job offers, to get responses when you're competing with such powerful brands with a solution that I won't name. That solution had both some loss at the application submission stage and losses when receiving applications. And above all, the act of applying was simply submitting a resume. PDFs that had to be opened, basically about 30,000 resumes per year. So I think after opening 1 or 2% of the resumes, everyone just stops. Very quickly, automation, digitalization, a technical solution started to emerge. The need to find such a solution became clear.
And you also told me when we were preparing for this interview that the candidates you're interested in don't necessarily have a resume, or maybe they just don't want to fill out a resume or go through a very heavy application process.
Absolutely. 1 out of 2, 1 candidate out of 2 applies without a resume, at least in our industry. So it's difficult to even collect an application in the first place when you require, or when the system requires, candidates to apply with a resume. And another particularity is that most applications now, at least among younger people, are made via mobile phone. So the systems, the ATS that were used at that time, at least ours, didn't allow candidates to apply via mobile phone. So once again, that's a challenge. On one hand, there was a challenge even with such powerful brands. And on the other hand, a process and tools that were completely outdated given the stakes involved.
So at that point, you decided to launch a project to address these issues, and you looked into different tools, including a conversational agent that you spent quite some time searching for, if I'm not mistaken.
The idea took about a year. We had a very clear idea of what we no longer wanted, a very clear idea of what we did want. And the idea was to start by thinking in terms of process, to focus first on meeting needs, and only then to look for the tool that could fulfill that. I think that was already a decisive factor, and we pretty much reviewed everyone out there. And in the end, to sum up, we really understood your need. It's very relevant, but I think you should actually be looking at this solution, this approach, this tool instead. In 99% of cases, it was very nice of you to listen to us, but we're not going to do business with you. And then there was one exception.
One exception.
Yes.
Can you tell us about it? The suspense
Is at its peak.
I have a little idea, but still.
I always have trouble with SoWhat AI, Stefan. I apologize for that. But Unikai, the solution, has already existed for a few years now. I had been following Stefan for a little while, his trial runs, the successive improvements, and we realized that at some point the solution had reached a level of maturity that was interesting for us. That was the first point. The conversational assistant is fundamentally a way to handle volume, the mass. We recruit 7,000 candidate employees per year, with 30,000 resumes received in PDF format. Just that alone meant we needed to find a solution to manage this volume and mass. With another particularity, our organization is multi-site, and it's managers and directors who have many responsibilities, many priorities, and clearly sorting through resumes with their teams is not one of them. So once again, the machine had to provide a solution.
So could you please tell me, how did the implementation of the solution actually go in practice?
We had to demonstrate, this tool had to prove its ability to solve all the problems I mentioned. So a single demo presentation is a good thing, but testing the solution in real conditions and with a good representation or a good panel of users seemed to us to be the best way to proceed. We tested the solution over 2 months with 80 people. So operators who were more or less comfortable with the tools, with the systems. It was also a good opportunity for us to prepare for the change management that would follow. But it was also, once again, a good way to confirm that this was clearly the solution that could address our issues.
That's right. And not just the technical solution, but also the solution in terms of flexibility, of adapting to your business constraints.
It always comes back to the same point. It's a process, a series of needs, a clearly defined time frame. We know exactly what we need, and the solution must precisely address each stage of the process and the needs that arise at each stage of the process. That's fundamental.
And the results?
So, 30,000 CVs in PDF per year. After almost 20 months of use, we've gone up to 340,000. So a completely different scale. The solution also allows us to pre-qualify the CVs, so to sort them, to push forward the CVs that are most interesting for us, the applications that are most relevant to us. The system also allows us to follow up with the candidate when the interview is scheduled. The match between the position and the profile is improved as a result. And the other point, just to go back a bit to the sourcing stage, meaning the posting of job offers and the receipt of applications. I won't get too technical, but it's impossible for us to post offers other than through Arias Recruit. Now it's McDonald's with a little asterisk by Arias, that's recruiting, and that's across all the job boards in France. So this has truly been a revolution for us. For us, this generates volume, it qualifies the resumes we receive, and it allows us to get applications from places where we no longer had any. It really has been a revolution for us.
So now you're receiving applications, you sift through them to identify the right profiles. And so you provide each store or center manager with your points of sale. In the end, here's the information about the good candidates who could be recruited and possibly recruited very quickly?
Volume, quality volume, or at least with a higher level of quality. It may seem anecdotal, but in our line of work, which is highly labor intensive with seasonality and fluctuations, this is something extremely important for running the business, but also for the stability of our organizations, the teams, and their ability to deliver. This also turned out to be extremely important for team morale and for the willingness to re-engage. Even though for many, the fight seemed lost and people had given up. You see, there's also this little effect that has emerged, a small
commitment. By the way, the usage rate of the solution is
massive. 100% of our sites use it today.
100% of the sites?
Yes, 100%. So Arias in France means 170 sites. That's nearly 700 points of sale. So it's a machine. I mean, it's something that's completely integrated. It was a revolution. I'm choosing my words carefully here, and God knows Stefan knows how demanding I am. But in this case, I can say it with confidence.
In terms of results, aside from the numbers you mentioned earlier about volumes, recruitment, etc., in terms of, because I imagine you also gave up certain systems or practices to refocus on.
Well, yes. First of all, user and recruiter satisfaction. I think it's clear to everyone that we're very happy with this partnership. On the candidate side, our satisfaction rate is hovering around 80 to 90%. So again, that's a good thing. Another advantage of having this volume of applications is that it potentially creates a database for the future. So people have entered the system, have gone part of the way with us, and will move on. We can still maintain the connection with them. In fact, that's something we'll be focusing on a bit later, but I think we'll come back to that. So recruiter satisfaction rate, excellent user satisfaction rate, also very good. I think we have a solid tool, and in any case, it satisfies everyone here.
What about the budget?
Let's say base 100 for the initial solution, base 300 for the Unica I solution. On the other hand, the job ad budget was cut in half. So overall, we're definitely coming out ahead. But what we have trouble quantifying, and yet it's also extremely important, are the gains, the efficiency, and the time savings for our operation staff. That's very significant. Having enough people on our teams allows us to successfully deliver to Norshi, serve our valued clients, and achieve our economic and financial goals. We didn't bother to make a direct connection between the tool and that, but it's obvious, it's clear.
And if you had 2 or 3 key takeaways, based on your experience with SoWhat AI, that you could share with anyone in the room who's considering getting a conversational assistant or a platform.
Don't hesitate to challenge the teams. SoWhat AI, they have an excellent ability to respond. But it's also their strength. The quality of Stefan and his teams is being able to be there, to be available and committed to their clients, which is also quite unique. I was asked this question earlier. We made the decision in April 2023. We signed the contract on July 31st, 2023, and we started deployment from September 22nd, 2023. So going back, this test with 80 people, this demo tested by 80 people, was missing almost 10% of the final configuration. So the teams worked on it with great intensity, showing real availability, which considerably facilitated, I would say, the deployment and adoption by the teams. And I think, again, that's something that deserves to be acknowledged. First point. Second point, we must not stop here. And we're already working on the next step, which is the digitalization of the constitution, the files, and the employees. To put it simply, you are in the database. We have made the decision to hire you. So all the documents that make up your personal file are integrated into the system, read by the system. I know the partners are in the room, and I'm sending you a little message. Please be responsive and ensure quality in what you will soon be providing us. The information is collected and entered into our payroll software, which forms the employee's payroll file. Sign, this is a very important step, and it saves time for operations, for HR, and for payroll. And we go all the way to producing the employment contract. That's the first step. The second step is the automated transmission of the contract to the employee using DocuSign signature solutions. which will then be stored in the document management system. It may not seem spectacular, but remember the volumes involved. Remember the imperative with decentralized organizations to secure processes and ensure that we have the most complete documentation base possible. This is also a revolution for us.
Thank you very much, Henri, and congratulations on this success, because it's a fantastic project.
We were very well supported throughout the process.